this is the session in which we do trash talk. We're going to be talking about waste, and we're going to be talking about the circular economy and functions of systems that are sustainable for our cities. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to two colleagues. We have Gina Ellis from Philadelphia, Drexel University, my former institution, and Juliana Iannacone from, I'm going to get it wrong, but it's not University of Milan, but a university in Milan, where both
Polytechnic.
Polytechnic, that's it. Okay,
Polytech.
thank you. Polytech. And both Gina and Juliana are architects, and they will be talking about the circular waste and the circular economy. Over to you, Gina.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. Let me share my screen so you can see the PowerPoint. All right, so we're good. So welcome to this session on waste management and health. And our, okay, wait, so let me get this going. There. So in this session, we're going to define waste, and we're going to show how it can impact the environment and health. We're going to demonstrate the differences in waste management for cities in the global north and the global south. And then we're going to show how waste can be converted from a problem to a resource. So I'm going to start out with definitions. Waste is defined as unwanted and unusable materials and is regarded as a substance which is of no use. The waste that we see in our surroundings is also known as garbage. Garbage is mainly considered as a solid waste that includes waste from households, schools and offices, industries and factories, and agricultural waste. Sources of waste can be broadly classified into 4 types: domestic or household, industrial, commercial, and agricultural. Household waste is referred to as municipal solid waste, or MSW, and as the household waste collected during household activities like cooking, cleaning, raking the yard, going to the bathroom, things like that. Commercial waste consists mainly of plastic and paper, but industrial waste, on the other hand, includes just about anything else, like dirt and gravel, masonry and concrete, scrap metal, oil, chemicals, scrap lumber, even, vegetable matter from restaurants. It may be hazardous or non-hazardous waste, and it may pollute nearby soil or adjacent water bodies. Unfortunately, many industries dump their waste right into the rivers and seas, which pollutes nearby waterways. Agricultural waste is due to the cultivation of crops and livestock and includes cattle waste, weeds, and husks. There are 2 types of waste. There's biodegradable and non-biodegradable. Biodegradable waste can come from the kitchen or agricultural production and includes food remains and garden waste. Biodegradable waste tends to be moist and can be composted over a period of time to obtain soil or fertilizer. On the other hand, non-biodegradable waste includes everything else and tends to be dry, but it can be recycled and can be reused. However, because it does not decompose by itself, if it's not recycled, it can then become a major pollutant. Chemical waste is non-biodegradable and is mostly produced in large factories and may or may not be hazardous, which is why it needs to be safely disposed of. So why do we care? Because prioritizing sustainable practices ensures a cleaner, healthier, and more sustainable planet. Improper waste disposal can lead to various health hazards because waste can contaminate soil, water, it can contaminate the air, and it can spread diseases and infections and cause harm to people, wildlife, and ecosystems. Further, hazardous waste can leak toxic substances into the environment, which can lead to serious health consequences for the people who live nearby. So here's some examples of hazardous waste that ends up in our environment. So waste is produced that we don't even think about because we don't see it. Waste that is the result of industry and manufacturing making things for us to use. For example, chemical manufacturing produces industrial chemicals and a huge amount of hazardous waste when making the different products that we use on a day-to-day basis. Not to mention their containers, which do generally end up in a landfill somewhere. Also, depleted batteries and electronics contain toxic chemicals, and that if they're not disposed of properly, can leak out and contaminate groundwater, can damage fragile ecosystems, and it can potentially make its way into the food chain. And healthcare waste, of which 15% is considered hazardous material that might be infectious, chemical, or radioactive, including sharps like needles and scalpels. But the worst ever is plastic pollution. It's one of the biggest environmental concerns. Plastic has toxic pollutants that damage the environment and cause land, water, and air pollution. It can take hundreds or even thousands of years for plastic to break down. So the damage to the environment is long lasting. Plastic can be recycled, but only once. And then it needs to be discarded. Plastic ends up in the ocean, and once at sea, the sun, wind, and wave action breaks down plastic waste into very small particles. These microplastics are then spread throughout the water and have been found in every corner of the globe, including in municipal drinking water systems, and in around 33% of fish that's gathered globally, which means that we have more than a 30% chance of ingesting plastic whenever we eat fish. But these health impacts have yet to be established. So the world is producing, consuming, and throwing away more clothes than ever before. We have to be stylish, right? So globally, only 30% of collected clothing, clothing that we recycle or donate, is resold. Only 30% is resold on domestic markets due to poor quality and its low resale value. The rest are baled and sold to textile merchants who ship them overseas to countries in the global south where they're purchased for resale. In addition to the increased carbon footprint of shipping used clothing across the globe, only 70% of imported garments are actually resold in the host country. 2/3 of the remainder are cascaded to lower value goods, and 1/3 is just dumped. These receiving countries often lack adequate waste and recycling infrastructure to deal with textiles, so the global north's unwanted garments ultimately end up overflowing landfill sites and blocking waterways in the global south. Developed and developing countries are terms used to describe the economic status and quality life of nations. Developed countries are independent and prosperous with high per capita income and gross domestic product, or GDP, and a high literacy rate and technological infrastructure. Developing countries, on the other hand, are facing the beginning of industrialization with a lower per capita income and low GDP, literacy rate, and low technological infrastructure. Geographically, developed and developing countries are analogous to the global north and the global south, which we can see here, except for Australia and New Zealand. Earlier, we defined municipal solid waste as the household waste collected during household activities like cooking, cleaning, and going to the bathroom. We can see from this map that the amount of solid waste generated per capita globally corresponds almost identically with the global north and the global south. And similarly, while the global north produces more waste per capita, the waste produced is not all that visible to the public due to municipal garbage collection and wastewater treatment plants. On the other hand, without these municipal services, solid waste in the global south is disposed of by dumping in open spaces, water bodies, and surface drains. Some burn their solid waste, while others indiscriminately bury it. In other words, while waste management is invisible in the global north, garbage is very visible in the third world countries of the global south. Worldwide, 1 in 5 people do not have access to safe and affordable drinking water, and every other person does not have access to safe and sufficient sanitation. Most of these people live in the global south in informal settlements and likely do not have access to the bathrooms common in the global north. Open defecation is the human practice of going to the bathroom outdoors rather than in a toilet. People may choose fields, bushes, forests, ditches, streets, canals, or other open spaces to do this. This is a disease-producing practice that contaminates drinking water and spreads diseases such as cholera, dysentery, diarrhea, and it's particularly fatal among children. This perpetuates a vicious cycle of disease and poverty. Additionally, females tend to fear open defecation because they're more vulnerable to sexual violence. However, wastewater and sludge can be seen as a valuable resource in a circular economy that can provide reliable water and nutrients for food production and recovered energy in various forms. In the absence of a citywide sewage system, the first link in household waste management is containment. This can be a septic tank or a pit latrine ventilated by a pipe. Then the sludge needs to be removed either manually or mechanically. On the downside, households that cannot afford emptying services may allow their collection containers to flood out during the rainy season. Not so good for the environment. The third link is transporting the sludge to a treatment facility where it can be treated. The final link is some type of reuse and disposal. Reuse either as fertilizer or waste to energy, or disposal as in waste to a landfill. And this is new to me. I just discovered this, but it's a way to address this in developing countries is a waterless toilet that diverts and separates human waste into its liquid and solid forms, a sustainable closed-loop system that closes the gap between sanitation and agriculture. This technical solution separates the liquid and the solid waste using 2 different bowls. The one in the front collects urine, and the rear bowl the feces and the toilet paper. As it turns out, urine is surprisingly low in pathogens and contains phosphorus, potassium, and nitrogen, which are widely used for growing crops. Urine can be treated by simply storing it above 70 degrees Fahrenheit for a couple of months. The pH of the urine increases over time and becomes ammonia, which sanitizes the urine. It can then be used as a fertilizer. For safe reuse of human feces, they need not to be treated actively. They do need to be treated actively to destroy the pathogens and decrease the risk of odors and flies. This system is best for rural conditions where sanitary sewers and stormwater management systems can be expensive, but agricultural operations are likely nearby. A lot of the materials that end up in landfills, as I mentioned earlier, contain toxins that are eventually released and seep into the soil and groundwater. These substances are major hazards to the environment and can last for several years. As liquid seeps through a landfill and collects decomposed waste components, chemical reactions take place that produce a toxic liquid that can seep into groundwater and streams. Organic materials such as food scraps and yard waste are usually compacted when they're put into a landfill. The problem with this is it removes the oxygen and causes the material to break down anaerobically. And over time, this produces methane gas, which is a type of greenhouse gas that's 20 times more potent than carbon dioxide, and it escapes into the air and wreaks havoc on the environment. Methane is also flammable and can be very dangerous in large concentrations. Waste that is buried in a landfill will break down slowly and present a lot of problems for future generations. In cities like Mumbai and Nairobi, there is a deeply embedded cultural norm around minimizing waste, so there is a lot of informal recycling. There's value in what's thrown away. People pick through rubbish at dumps, looking for items that can be sold to recycling factories. Garbage can be valuable. For example, aluminum cans are a resource. Making cans from recycled aluminum requires 95% less energy and creates 90% less greenhouse gas emissions than virgin stock. The Dandora dump site seen here is East Africa's largest landfill site and among the largest in the world. Every single day, 2,000 tons of unsorted, unregulated waste from the city's residents and businesses is dumped here. Up to 6,000 people make a living picking waste from the landfill site to sell, generating an income for over 3,000 families. Incinerators, on the other hand, will reduce the solid mass of waste by 80 to 85% and its volume by 95 to 96%. This means that while incineration does not completely replace landfilling, it does significantly reduce the necessary volume for disposal. Incineration is the process of burning hazardous materials at temperatures that are high enough to destroy contaminants, and this process is conducted in an incinerator, which is a type of furnace designed specifically for burning hazardous materials in the combustion chamber. Although it destroys many kinds of harmful chemicals, incineration does not destroy metals such as lead and chromium. Unfortunately, in some countries, incinerators built just a few decades ago often do not include the materials separation required to remove hazardous, bulky, or recyclable materials before consumption. And as you can see here, incinerators do contribute significantly to air pollution. Air pollution is a recognized global health risk factor and is associated with close to 7 million deaths every year. And especially affects lower income communities who tend to be more exposed and more vulnerable, and they might actually live nearby. As you can see from this map, air pollution is greatest in the global south. Low income groups tend to be more exposed to air pollution because they're more likely to depend on jobs that require outdoor physical labor. And when affected by pollution-related diseases, they tend to have more limited access to healthcare, which increases mortality rates. The burden of air pollution tends to be greater across both low and middle income countries for two reasons. Indoor air pollution rates tend to be high in low income countries due to a reliance on solid fuels like wood for cooking. Outdoor air pollution tends to increase as countries industrialize and shift from low to middle incomes. Incineration is a waste treatment process that involves the combustion of substances contained in waste materials. However, industrial plants for waste incineration can be designed with energy recovery systems using waste to energy technologies that can actually generate electricity and heat as renewable energy to offset the greenhouse gas pollution from coal, oil, and gas-fired power plants. Incineration has particularly strong benefits for treatment of certain waste types in niche areas such as clinical wastes and certain hazardous wastes where pathogens and toxins need to be destroyed by high temperatures. Especially chemical plants with diverse toxic or very toxic wastewater streams, which cannot be routed to a conventional wastewater treatment plant. For example, see, I showed you all these really ugly images or scary images. Now here's some really pretty images. So this plant, Copenhagen, is the cleanest waste to energy power plant in the world and is on, so this is a real project. It's on the industrial waterfront of the island Amager, which is near to Copenhagen in Denmark and is Denmark's most populated island. This waste to energy plant covers 41,000 meters squared and is 85 meters high. Annually, the plant produces 440,000 tons of waste and produces electricity and district heat for 150,000 homes. This sustainable waste management site has become a place of interest for tourists and locals. Copenhagen has a roof terrace and viewing plateau, a cafe, a nature trail, hiking pads, a climbing wall, and a ski slope. It was designed by the Danish architects Bjarke Ingels Group, or BIG, and Copenhagen follows the idea that sustainable living should be good for the environment and enjoyable for the people who live there. Another waste to energy technology is anaerobic digestion, which actually dates back as far as the 19th century. Anaerobic digestion is the breakdown of a material in the absence of air. Organic waste is fed into the digester tanks. Over time, the material goes through different stages and gets broken down by microorganisms, with the result being a rich methane gas. Excuse me. The result is a methane-rich biogas, which can then be used to power a combined heat and power unit to generate electricity. The material that's left in the system is a nutrient-rich fertilizer, which farmers can then spread onto their land. For example, cow manure can be used for the feedstock. Then, at the end of the process, the nutrient-rich biofertilizer can be spread onto the fields where the cows graze. This can be seen as almost net zero carbon emissions. Food waste can also be used as feedstock, and instead of going to a landfill, can now be used as the input to a system that can be turned into energy. So in terms of the waste hierarchy, disposal is kind of at the bottom of the hierarchy. Really, it comprises landfill or incineration without any waste to energy recovery. Recovery includes energy or waste products from, recovery includes energy or products from waste, like incineration with waste to energy and anaerobic digestion. Recycle converts waste into a new substance or product, the circular economy, which we are going to talk about in the second part of this course. And it's going to have much prettier images too. So for our breakout tasks, we want you to think about the challenges in your city for waste management. You know, what do they do there? How do they manage their waste? Can you see any other opportunities or strategies for waste recovery or recycling in your city or country? Do the waste management practices in your city or country affect the health of its citizens? This could be physical health due to disease or psychological health with respect to hygiene. And are there any social or cultural norms specific to your city or country that might affect how waste is managed? Thank you.
That's a lot of questions. That's a lot of information and a lot of issues for you to discuss. I might sort of synthesize it as saying, how is waste managed in your environment? And then is there evidence for doing some of the things that Gina was talking about, the recycling or the reuse or the recovery aspects in your environment? So try to apply the information that Gina has just given us to where you live and in your region. And I think that'll result in some very interesting discussions. And then we'll come back as a group as we do, and we'll hear from various places around the world. So that's terrific. And thank you, Gina. And Gina may need to leave a little early because she's actually going to visit Juliana in Italy very shortly. So thank you, Gina. And we will go to our breakout rooms momentarily. Let me just organize myself here. And I will repost sort of a summary, not a summary, but a short version of your tasks shortly. I think we're going to go, let's see if we do just a couple of groups here. Yeah, so we'll go with 2 groups. And actually, yeah, so that'll be great. And so we'll see you back in about 15 minutes or so. Okay, ready, steady, go. And when the breakout groups go to the last second and they continue to function till then, that's always good. So talk to me. Tell me what folks discussed in their rooms, advancing the concepts that that Gina has put forth to apply to your local environment. I'm looking at Valentine. It looks like he's about to say something. Go ahead, Valentine. Take yourself off mute. You're on mute.
Valentine, you are muted.
Yeah, I just said we can't. We're not very good at reading lips. We can't hear you. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, now we go. Very good.
Yes.
Okay. Start from the beginning. Start from the beginning.
Yeah. Okay. Speaking to my best of knowledge and also from the contributions we made in our group. Yeah, it was actually an interesting one because for my area specifically, we encountered the issue of petrol, quarry sites, and also the salt deposits. Yeah, those are the major issue concern here. And also, apart from the market areas which are always polluted by household waste, yeah, that's the waste from the marketplaces, from foodstuffs, the garbage, and the rest of them. So now, starting from the market areas, the major issues we're facing there are the position of foodstuffs or decaying foodstuffs that are generated from the market areas. Now, these foodstuffs accumulate in the market due to the fact that there is no efficient sanitary measures that are imposed on the removal of these foodstuffs. So now, in that case, I suggest that the government should provide a mobile waste bin that these people can actually be putting in their foodstuffs as an or kind of the let me see the cover the unneeded parts of the stores so that they can actually be the government can actually be removing them or carrying them along every morning to the designated area for the deposition of the waste. So now, and also in rainy season specifically, we encounter the problem of poor drainage system. And when these water bodies accumulate in the market area, they tend to facilitate the pollution of these market places, because these water bodies will actually carry other foodstuffs or other waste products from other areas down to these market areas, and then contributing to the increase in the waste generated in the market areas. Now, how should the government treat these issues? The government should help us with this issue by providing an efficient water channels, which will enable these water bodies not accumulate in those market areas and then carrying them to the water banks or at least across the market areas where they can actually dispose those waste product generated for the market. And also, apart from those, they should also educate those market women so that they can minimize or regulate the rate at which they generate these waste. So that even though they produce the sanitary measures, they can actually be putting them in the main safe places so they can at least
Got it.
and help
Wow.
the government as the government is helping them. So also now speaking of the mining sites and
let me interrupt you.
quarry areas.
Let me interrupt you for a second just to say what
Okay.
city and country are you in?
Okay. Yeah, I'm from the eastern parts of Nigeria. Eastern part of Nigeria, especially focused on Ebonyi State in Nigeria.
Yeah, and
So,
you
and
mentioned some of the,
in
well, hang on, but let me just make sure we get some summarization here. So it sounds like
okay,
one of the interesting areas that you're bringing to the discussion is food waste. I mean, that is
yeah,
a
food waste.
tremendous issue around the world,
Yeah,
particularly dramatic in the sense that there are so many people who need food. And so we're wasting food at the same time when people need food. And then you also
no,
mentioned the issue of complicated by water systems that are not sufficiently
yes,
adequate to
yes,
drain the areas.
yes,
So,
yeah. But speaking from nature, my part, the part of the country where I live, are actually known for maximum food production. So it's a nature's blessing that we produce sufficient quantity of food. So that contributes the some part of it being wasted. So though we have efficient marketing environments, so but that is not enough because these food products are also continuously being wasted by inefficient management and also poor agricultural processing. So I think I've answered those part of the question. Now speaking in the quarry
hang on a
areas.
second. Hang on a second. Let me just see if I can get some other voices in the conversation. This is fascinating, and
Okay.
I think others may have something to contribute as well.
Okay.
But to stay on the line here. What did others talk
Okay.
about in their session? Like anybody from either Valentine's group or the other group?
Nilton from Brazil.
Ah, you've been volunteered. I love volunteering, Nilton.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's one of my favorite
Yes.
students to volunteer.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, sir. Yeah. Okay, I should proceed.
Any thoughts,
Someone's
Nilton, or
talking.
do you want to write it into the chat first to collect
Okay.
your thoughts?
Okay, yeah.
I
Easy.
talked about in our conversation with Juliana and Valentin, the waste
Yeah.
here where I live in Brazil, Rio Grande do Norte, Caicó. There is a lot of trash accumulation and also the sewage flow in the river which pass through the city and which affects his affluence, affluence, and affects other cities, which comes after my city, and it's a very serious problem, not only because the dissemination of disease, but also causes a social impact with other peoples which come from here, which comes for here, and which depends with all of this situation. And I thought that maybe some things which could be very useful here to solve this waste management could be sewage state treatment for the sewage flow. Only one sewage state treatment which we don't have here could be could be resolve a lot of stuffs around a lot of problems which occurs around the river, close to the river, because the peoples which live close for the river are more can be infected by disease more easily than other people's. And this sewage treatment could be very useful for this sewage flow. And Eugenia talked about one thing which I thought that could be used here, which was the incineration of the trash, the collection of the trash accumulation, and the use of this trash for incineration and produces energy or use the products for fertilization. Of course, the project which she showed, it's very big for the city, and I don't think that my city has the conditions for this project. But even though something more simple than this, which has the same concept, could be used here for this trash accumulation. And what's that?
Well, thank you so much, Nilton. But really, very clear presentation. Both you and Valentine have mentioned the issue of infectious disease complications, specifically parasites. And that is it's an interesting problem in the sense that it is quite insidious, or it's quite hidden sometimes, where a prevalence of parasitic infestation creates conditions for widespread anemia, which may be undiagnosed, but only presents itself as low productivity or tiredness. And that was the countries in which there have been major anti-parasitic campaigns have done much better. But as you point out, Nilton and Valentine, the real answer is preventing those parasites from getting into the water stream. Yeah, very good. Thank you. Other thoughts, comments that folks want to add? Those are some pretty serious thoughts of concern for where you folks live.
Anyway, just a general appreciation for this program. It has always been a wonderful one, and to you, I really appreciate you, sir. I really thank you. So I just take a general comments. Yeah. So thank you very much.
Yeah, no, this is, the interesting thing is that this is a topic that oftentimes does not get discussed in your classroom situations. And so that's why we feel that this is such an important opportunity.
Yeah, actually, even for sorry. Even for me, though I had the interrupted lecture, that's why I didn't come early for the section. It's actually a major, it's actually an area of interest for me because as a student in medicine, it's one of the prerequisites that you know other things that are happening other things that are happening, even not only in your area, also the health challenges that others are facing in their country. That's why I'm interested in participating in this health cities and innovation. So it's a pretty one. It's a pretty one. So
absolutely. Okay, Simran, you had a comment?
Thank you.
Go ahead. Yeah, you're welcome.
Hello everyone. So I just in the second group, me and Vansh told about the initiatives that were happening in Punjab. But the major show was by Juan Carlos. He really shared really interesting details. So I think he should share it with you all. It was really amazing presentation. He did this slide share. It was so amazing. Like it was so much information about the landfills, how they prevent the leaching and stuff. I think you should share it again.
Yeah, there we go. That's Simran demonstrating leadership by appointing Juan Carlos to add some information. Thank you, Simran. Good work.
No. I was just saying how trash is managed in Bogota, which is a large city. It's 8 million people. We produce 6,500 tons of waste per day. We try to put it away in a landfill. Most of it we don't. We still haven't gotten around recycling very much. We recycle about 5% of our waste, which is really bad. Although there are recycling stations everywhere, but nobody really knows how to recycle. I think education is paramount in these areas. And I was just showing them via Google Maps, I'm sorry, where the landfill is, which is in the southern part of Bogota, and it's a huge landfill, and it's filled up already. I think it's age. I mean, it's overfilled by now. We don't have anywhere else to put our waste, and 6,500 tons of waste per day are a huge problem. Nobody wants to have a landfill in their backyard. So I don't know, this is kind of a summary of what I just said. I'm sorry, Simran.
Yeah, it reminds me of a very interesting project in New York City. Now, everybody knows about 9/11 and how the Twin Towers came down. But what you may not realize is that millions of tons of waste material were generated by these 100-story buildings coming down. And all of it went across the harbor to the eastern coast of Staten Island in a landfill called Fresh Kills. Now, Fresh Kills, what a great name, was already a landfill, and this just added literally hundreds and millions of tons of material. However, what has happened now over the last 20 years is that that entire landfill area has been converted to a public park. Very interesting project. I'll see if I can get a link to it, but it's a huge public park now that has been converted from the waste initially generated just in general from landfill, and then the tripling, quadrupling of waste from 9/11 that all went to this site. So very interesting project, and I think one that people would be interested in looking at. The other thing that Juan Carlos's comments reminded me about is the issue of, I'm going to put it in quotation marks, recycling. Is not so simple, and there's some sense that this concept of recycling was promoted by petrochemical industry to push the responsibility for disposal of plastics over to you and me. So we need to do the recycling, and they're promoting that. So there's some interesting pushback, and the concept of recycling, let's just say it's not so simple, and it takes substantial energy resources to, for example, recycle plastic. So just bear that in mind. We often sort of worship at the altar of recycling, and maybe we should give it some second thoughts. I'm going to turn things over to my friend Juliana to offer comments and perhaps respond to some of the inputs from people, and if not, then to move on further. But over to you, Juliana.
Okay, I had a very great discussion with Nilton, Valentin, and even Rawan, who added very, very late. And there are so many topics that they covered and many problems that they are facing. And but maybe we can discuss more at the end even of my presentation, because I would like even to understand the people, the citizen perspective in those areas, because sometimes we understand the problems that people, they are not so completely aware of the unhealthy living condition in cities because of the waste. And maybe we can discuss about that at the end of this morning or afternoon together.
Sure.
Anyway, very interesting inputs by everyone.
This is a A++ class.
Yeah.
Thank
I'm
you very
going
much.
to share.
So go ahead, Julia, you can share your screen.
I'm going to share my screen. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, good. So basically, this is, let's say, the second part of our presentation. And we are moving from waste management to what is a circular economy principle within built environment and, of course, within the cities. And because of the relevance of the cities worldwide, because basically most of the population is living there, I'm going to consider and to demonstrate why cities are crucial to the implementation of circular economy principles. And at the end of this presentation, I'm going to show you some case studies from cities in order to see how this principle have been applied in some cities. Of course, the main topic of this lecture series, for some reason, is moving ahead. It's not me; it's automatic. I'm not able to stop it. It's because cities have a key role in the world economies, and they account for almost the 85% of gross domestic product generation worldwide. But at the same time, in addition to this economic relevance in the different countries, cities are responsible for the 75% of natural resources and the production of 50% of global waste, and that with even a great environmental impact, from 70 to 80% of the global carbon emission are due to cities. There is something that we have to take into account when we consider the future of our cities. Something that many aspects are related to demographic changes, population growth in particular. The increased extreme weather events that are facing many urban areas worldwide, rising sea levels, and all the associated needs for repair. All these aspects are accelerating, in particular, the demand for construction and the resource use, material use. Valentin, before in our discussion, was highlighting the problem of mining of materials, and basically all this huge demand for materials use is expected, is due because of the cities, because of the requirements, the needs by the cities, and it's expected, of course, to increase in the future because of the increase of population in the cities. By 2050, research says that cities are expected to expand even faster than the population grows. So that means that a huge amount of land will be covered by construction. And that means that an increased amount of raw materials is expected in an average which is 9 times more than 10 years ago. So it's a very huge amount of materials, which put increasing pressure on the urban systems like water, energy, waste, all the aspects that we have shown in the first part of this lecture. And although attention to the quality of life in urban areas has increased because of the awareness of the connection with the human health, cities in which we live today continue to operate according to a linear model that is take, make, consume, throw away, in which resources are used and disposed of. Of course, this linear model is, and it's not efficient as a model. That means that basically a huge amount of material input is used, is extracted, and in order to produce just a very limited amount of output. So a huge amount of resources, of materials is waste. And this process is called urban metabolism, which explains basically how this process of production works. And these inefficiencies are really relevant in urban areas where we have so many structural wastes. What are these structural wastes? We can find them in several sectors: mobility, food, and construction. Just to give you an example, I read some number. In Europe, the average car is parked 92% of time. So just the 8% of time a car is used. The rest of the time is parked. 31% of food is waste along the value chain. And this is another important aspect. If we take a typical office building, an office building, even during office hours, is just used for the 35 to 50%. Look at the picture. Lights are on, but no one is inside the building. And so we have analyzed during the first part of this lecture the challenges which are generated by the waste management and collection in cities, and that means that there is a huge environmental impact associated to these inefficiencies. We have a measure of these inefficiencies. We have a measure of the environmental impact of cities and their linear urban metabolism, which is the ecological footprint that basically measures the human demand on natural capital. And in particular, it measures the amount of surface which is used to produce the necessary goods we need, and the necessary surface which is necessary to manage waste. The current humankind ecological footprint corresponds to 1.7 planet Earth. So basically now we are using an amount of surface in order to produce our goods that we need for our needs that requires a surface which is almost twice than the Earth surface. And this overuse is called ecological overshoot. You can see, according to the different countries in the world, what is the overshoot days that can be reached. In countries as Qatar and Luxembourg, the day of the year where the available surface in order to produce the necessary amount that we need has been reached in a very short time since the beginning of the year. This is very, very impressive. But we can learn from nature. Basically, the principle of circular economy comes from nature, comes from the typical metabolism of living systems. So in contrast to the current linear model of the economy, the circular economy is based on sharing, leasing, reuse, repair, refurbish, and recycling. But recycling so often is at the end of all these elements. And it's almost a closed loops where products and material they contain are highly valued. Basically, is a principle that reduces to a minimum the waste. And as I told you, this model, it is inspired, take its lesson from nature. Nature uses only the resources it needs and recycling everything with no waste. For example, harvesting nearby resources as birds do for their nests. Unfortunately, birds are starting to build their nest with the plastics that they are able to find everywhere. The circular economy is based on three main principles. So design out waste and pollution. So basically reducing waste, not at the end because we are recycling, but since the beginning. Keep products, components, and materials at their highest value and in use. And finally, this is another aspect that we basically will see during the next lectures on the biodiversity, regenerate natural system by enhancing the natural capital and creating the regeneration of, for example, the soil. This is another important aspect because, of course, the use of resources implies the use of a huge amount of soil. I'm going to present here some, let's say, some processes, some strategies which mainly affect the construction of buildings. But because, of course, building and construction technologies are my main field of research, but you can apply the same principle to other systems, other sectors. It refers to some specific part of the city, which is construction and related to a specific use of one kind of material, which are construction materials. In Europe, I'm presenting the case of Europe, but at the end, I'm going to move even into the other context. We have a main problem because basically the use of construction materials is projected to grow faster than the global population. So that means a huge amount of area has been built with no correspondence to the increase of population. So basically the construction industry is one of the most resource intensive industries, one of the most resource intensive sector. And circular economy principle applied to construction industry can be summarized in this pyramid, which basically set a hierarchy for building within the planetary boundaries that we have seen because of the overshoot has been already overcome. And the first thing in order to reduce waste in every sector is to build, product nothing. If you don't need, you don't have to produce nothing. And this is the main point. And so if you can use something that is already available, do that, even in the case of building. The following, the next option, for example, is to renovate existing buildings for new uses, or if we believe it to other sectors, reuse whatever it's already available, even for different uses. And only in the end, only if it's strictly necessary, you can build new, you can product new. Of course, this is a strategy that should be adapted to the different context because the requirements may be really different. Just to show you some possible strategies that can be used in already, let's say, dense and built context like the global north can be presented in this the four next slides that basically represent the four elements of this strategy. So build nothing means to use whatever we already available. Here we have an example in the downtown Zurich in Switzerland, where basically an existing underused infrastructure, which is this railway viaduct, has been used in order to host basically a new market for the city. And so basically this was a very interesting example where an existing infrastructure underused with a very, let's say, almost dangerous neighboring area has been revitalized by using what they have without occupying more land in order to build a new municipality market. At the same time, the strategies that basically is improving and upgrading a context. This is another typical situation that we have in Europe, which is basically related to underused buildings because of changes in the economies. We are in the harbor area of Hamburg. This is an office building that basically, after the reduction of economy associated to the harbor or of Hamburg, were almost abandoned. And because of the increase in population in Hamburg, basically without using other pieces of land, this building has been transformed into new modern contemporary apartment buildings. In this way, the existing materials and the existing area has been reused, and you can see that almost they seems to be contemporary housing. Or another example, which is related to the strategy extent. This is the headquarters of a company in Netherlands, and starting from a very typical organization of buildings of an industrial area, thanks to this new construction, basically this building that was originally built to accommodate 600 employees, basically now is able to host further 900 occupants. And the materials, basically the materials that can be used for this building are the result of a recycling process. So have been used basically materials which were already available on site. Just a curiosity, for example, for this huge steel umbrella, which creates a more covered space between the building. Roller coaster companies has been involved into the project in order to design a very lightweight structure with a very low amount of material. Anyway, the 90% of the materials within this building are basically reused or remained on site. And all these timber facade that you can see in the picture on the left basically are made by waste wood, which was available on site because they were old cable coils and utility poles. And last, a final example, so that if it is necessary to build new, is especially because there are many countries where housing needs requires new buildings. There are already available strategies that can promote circular economy principle. I'm just presenting this building. It's very simple, but there are many examples that we can find in the last years, which is a building built to last only 20 years, because basically the company who asked to build these buildings only considering the, let's say, the life of their business of 20 years. So they designed this building using standardized components that can be recycled at the end of the life, timber, cardboard, for example, for the pipes, whatever, that at the end of the 20 years, this is called the 20 office, considering the Roman numeral 20. Basically, it can be dismantled with no waste. Everything can be reused. I have presented the case studies mainly from buildings, but how can these strategies be integrated within urban policy? So let's change the scale of the intervention. At the city level, we can see worldwide several examples where municipal policymakers have begun to embed circular economy principles in city strategies and roadmaps. One of these examples is from Seoul metropolitan government in South Korea, and they launched in 2013 the Sharing City Seoul program. Basically, this initiative was let's say, started in order to cut the municipal spending in long term by promoting basically sharing in order to enable more benefits for the citizens with fewer resources. And basically, in cutting this municipal spending, the government can ensure, can provide more services to the citizens with a smaller budget. For example, even by opening up underused municipality buildings to the community instead of rather than build new space. The Sharing City Seoul that we can see here, they have a very nice website also. Basically is a social innovation measure that have been designed even to create new economic opportunities. So opportunities even to many startups that can promote their services within this circular economy principle. And another main objective is to reduce the waste of resources, trying to solve many problems that can be social, economic, and environmental at the same time. While the existing city policies focus on construction of primary infrastructure such as roads, parking areas, schools, and libraries, the city's future policies focus instead on the construction of secondary infrastructure such as space, objects, and talents, and other unused resource. We always speak about innovation in cities. Of course, digital technologies can be enablers of this principle, and digital technologies based made possible a fundamental shift in the way the economy function, and empowered the transition to a circular economy. Technology like asset tagging, geospatial information, big data management, and widespread connectivity have been identified as key enablers of circular economy. This is written in Korean, but basically it's easy to understand because we have symbols. Okay, so this is a Share Hub, an online platform established by the municipality of Seoul within the project of Sharing City, which is basically a directory of sharing services: home sharing, car sharing, clothes sharing, food sharing, and sharing and borrowing of whatever kind of goods that you can imagine is underused. And this kind of platform are available not only in South Korea, but also in China. China is actively utilizing sharing a shared economic model, which as a way to revitalize the regional economy. Basically, the shared economy in China has an average annual growth of 40%, and the Chinese government plans to expand the shared economy to 20% of the GDP by 2025. Let's go back to Europe. This is the agenda for a circular Amsterdam. Amsterdam is an example of city government pioneered in transition from a linear to a circular economy. The city has defined its role as a living lab for smart circular innovation, commissioning research into benefits collecting and sharing data and facilitated collaboration between research institutes, startups, and corporations. If you go on the website, you can find the details of this very wide agenda towards a circular economy. Public procurement is used in order to kickstart the circular services. The city signed a national raw materials agreement in 2017 in order to use 50% fewer new non-renewable materials by 2030 and to reach the target of a fully circular economy by 2050. So by 2030, as an intermediate target, the city purchases will be 100% circular, and the city will have reduced its own consumption by 20%, starting with the consumable materials, fixture and fittings of their own premises, and where possible, even civic building. By 20%, by 2030, as an intermediate target, 75% of all households in the city will have their organic waste collected separately. A similar approach is adopted in other European countries, and for example, the city of Copenhagen is another example of these strategies. I'm getting to the end of this presentation because, of course, the previous examples refer to almost well-established urban settings where circular economy approaches rely on a wide availability of goods and services to be made circular. With population growing, cities are expanding, areas are being redeveloped, and new cities are being built. The UN, this is a prospect by the UN, expect that there be 43 mega cities by 2050. Maybe I guess that this is a number that even other presentation before highlighted. Of course, a circular economy approach to urban development can unlock integrated opportunities for resource savings from one side, but even job creation, capacity building, civic engagement, healthy, because of course we are always, our focus always health, and inclusive environments. And decision made in urban planning, as we were discussing before, can contribute significantly to how materials, products, and nutrients flow between people and sites in the city. And of course, they can also influence how people work and travel and how organization can operate. Cities can use urban planning in a variety of ways to help a circular economy transformation. Some strategies: urban planning for compact city development to improve access to services and circulation. Site planning for circular material use and nutrient flows. Mobility planning for lower emission and better connected cities. Apollonia City is a new development that will be home to 88,000 residents in one of the fastest growing city regions in West Africa, in Ghana. It is planned as a walkable, community-centered development with streets and greenways that radiate from the central park to connect with the wider metropolitan area of Accra. A green network of linear parks, buffer zones, and neighborhood open spaces is designed to encourage and support modes of mobility different other than private car, even if in this render you will see car getting around. As the green network follows the terrain, it also serves to convey storm water to adjacent river valleys, alleviating flood risk within the city. This is a brand new city town, but so often this is how cities are growing in many countries. In developing countries, the focus remain, of course, on the necessary investments in new infrastructures and building stock in order to support a rapid industrialization and urbanization. Critical infrastructure has not kept pace with rapid urbanization, and city slums have borne the brunt of this expansion. Meeting demand for new construction and related infrastructure services is expected to double material extraction with respect to what is extracted today. And at the same time, we have seen before, developed countries also have far smaller stocks of materials for reuse and recycling than high-income countries do. Even if we use materials coming from global north to global south, let's say, it is not enough. Anyway, we can expect that improved trading in secondary building materials between developed and developing countries could provide an important pathway to meeting future building needs. Let me close my presentation today with this picture from Brazil. So this is for Nilton, as expected. And basically, in addition to smart design, innovation in materials can transform the resource footprint, the environmental footprint of urban development. So selecting regionally appropriate, renewable, non-toxic materials for new builds and retaining construction materials at their highest value can reduce demand for non-renewable virgin material. Bio-based materials offers opportunity to replace resource-intensive materials and are renewable by nature. We so often think about concrete, which has a very high environmental impact. Bio-based materials refer to materials made from renewable biological resources such as plant, wood, and organic waste. And so they are regarded as more ecological than other materials. Example of bio-based materials include engineered wood, bamboo, earth, and bioplastic. This is Fazenda Canoanhá, so I hope to pronounce it correctly, which is a small cluster of buildings that serves as a boarding school and includes 2 dormitories, 2 dorms for 500 students. Stabilized earth blocks composed of local soil were chosen as the means of construction for its elimination of long-distance transportation and also optimal thermal properties. The brick performed technically, but also aesthetically, from an aesthetics point of view, much in the way the locals have been doing for a long time. And I would like to just highlight this last sentence, in the way locals have been doing for a long time. Most of the things that we can do to promote a circular economy in the construction sector, but in almost all the sectors in our cities, are inherent to the way the humans have been doing for a long time. And this is my last presentation. Some of questions for this last session of breakout rooms. If you like to, if you have the opportunity to share some goods or resources that are shared in your city, and if there are any public or private initiative that promote circular economy approaches, so often they are let's say, community-based initiatives. In many cases, they are not regulated by policies, but are citizens or communities that promote these initiatives. And how land is used in the city where you live? Is it a resource, so it is protected, or urbanization processes are covering all the available soil. So I'm stop sharing so to leave space for discussion.
Well, thank you very much, Juliana. That was a real tour de force and lots of case studies, lots of examples. I did post the link to Fresh Kills, the example I gave from New York City. Let's take a few minutes just to focus, just I think a summary of those questions that Juliana put is something like, what evidence of a circular economy do you see in your environment? That's basically sort of summarizing those many different questions, all of which are sort of subtexts for that. So thinking about your local environment, think about the circular economy as described by Juliana and where you see evidence of that or where you might possibly see opportunities for that. So we'll just take a few minutes to do that. I'm going to break out the rooms and let's just start. And maybe it's easier actually if we just discuss it as a group now because we're a relatively small group. So I'm just going to ask you to where in your environment can you see evidence of the circular economy and where do you see opportunities for that as again using this as a starting point the examples that that Juliana presented. Just open it up to your thoughts. Is what I call the staring contest.
This is because we lost Valentine, who was really generous with this comment.
It's because people need a moment to think. So just take a moment, think about it, and think about what we'd like to hear is your environment. What's going on where you are, and can you take some of the examples and apply them? Go ahead, one callers.
Yes, it's very hard to think about any examples of circular economy in Bogota, which is sad, I must say. We are doing very poorly at that. Everything is new. We have still a lot of cars in the city with four seats and one driver only. We used to have these well, we have now some areas where we have bike routes that are shared by bikers, which is nice. That was working pretty nice, and we had these scooters at one point before the pandemic came over, and we could simply rent them or share them for not a nominal fee. It was kind of expensive in the beginning. I was having a lot of fun with them, and we could go places in the city. And then the pandemia came over. They I don't know. They became broke and they disappeared, which is very bad.
Yeah.
We have some, and just minor thing, we have some examples of green buildings in Bogota, which are kind of nice. But other than that, if I may share really quickly, 2 seconds, a couple of pictures which are nice. Um, I don't know if you're seeing this building. You're seeing my screen now?
Yeah.
Whoops. So now it sort of, there's a green building in Bogota and there's another here. Hold on. And that's become kind of popular, but these are new buildings still. These are not sort of refurbished, reused buildings, which is bad. That's all I have to say.
Yeah. Interesting. Thank you. Other thoughts?
Can I say something, please? Okay, so basically, I was also thinking about this this shareable economy, and basically over here in Nigeria where I am, the Ebonyi State to be precise. Can you hear me? Sorry. Okay, Ebonyi State to be precise. Looking at the environment and everything, basically we don't have much of a shareable economy, but basically what we share is resources. I got to understand like what we share is resources because this state produces limestone for cement production. So there's a kind of a connection with other states around us. Like there's a state close to us that's into coal production, and while the other states are into oil production. So what we do is we exchange. Basically, it's like an exchange program. I give you my limestone, I used to make cement. You give me some bitumen. I used to make my roads. While you give me the state that is that produces gas. Yes. So there's a new power plant that they have, a geometric power plant. So those states now will be able to give us light while we give them limestone. So it's basically they've been doing an exchange program instead of like I don't know if we could call it sharing, or basically they exchange resources. So you have this, I give you what I have, and you give me what you have. Yeah, basically, that's
Thank you.
what's.
All right, thank you. An interesting example. Good. Okay. Other thoughts? It takes money and it takes investment to actually initiate many of these projects. And sometimes it's cheaper to knock something down, or at least it's perceived as cheaper in the short run to knock something down and to build new. And I think some of the economic incentives are distorted because it does take a longer viewpoint to understand some of the economic benefits of taking an existing structure and recycling the building essentially to reuse it for another purpose. It's a great, I mean, Philadelphia is a perfect example where there's many buildings that are solid in their general structure, but in complete disrepair because of various reasons of tax delinquency or whatever, that developers choose to knock down and rebuild instead of taking that really nice, solid infrastructure of the building and investing money to create something that is almost nicer and certainly more of a evidence for reuse. The other challenge, by the way, in terms of economy is that we measure things as gross domestic product, GDP. And that's often measured in terms of how much stuff we make. And I think that's a very significant problem in how we assess ourselves and how we compare ourselves to other countries. The more stuff you essentially break down and make new, the better you look. So that's a serious problem. Other thoughts?
As I told you, so often you may have initiatives which are community-based, so they are bottom-up, because so often when, let's say, policymakers promote circular economy strategies to the citizens, seems that it's a strategy to save money, that they want to spend money in the necessary infrastructure. So often, look, okay, generally politicians, at least in Italy, if they want to demonstrate that they're doing something for the community, they prefer to say, no, we build new infrastructures, we build new streets, we build new bridges. Now there is a huge discussion about a huge bridge crossing the southern Italy from the mainland to the island. And but we have many initiatives which are community-based. Using digital technologies, people can share. We have book sharing, which is almost spread everywhere. So we have small boxes, but I guess that you have even in your cities, or clothes sharing, or sharing of children toys, because it's a huge amount of stuff. There are big warehouses where people can bring furniture, which is not more used, and make it available for free to our people, especially immigrants that are coming, and they can take this. But they are almost community-based or volunteering initiatives, not promote top-down.
And the political challenge, as you mentioned, Juliana, is presenting this as a first-class solution, not a third-rate solution where, oh, you're not getting the new thing, you're getting a reused thing. That's a political challenge for our leadership to make that look and demonstrate that that's actually the better plan. And unfortunately, many of our leaders don't have not subscribed to that. A real challenge. Yes, Juan Carlos.
Yes, also this it's not for buildings, but for, I don't know, cell phones and technological instruments. This programmed obsolescence that they only will last for, I don't know, 3 years, and then you have to buy a new one.
Yep.
That goes directly against it, I guess.
Yep. I mean, I won't ask, no one has to answer, but how many have a cell phone that's, less than 3 years old? Oh, I gotta have a new cell phone, right? And if you have a cell phone that's, I don't know, 8 or 9 or 10 years old, it's like, whoa, what's wrong with Nilton? He's got a 10-year-old cell phone. I'm so sorry for you, because that becomes part of the social and cultural environment. And these are things that Juliana alluded to. It's not just a matter of material technology, it's also a matter of political will and social and cultural norms. Huge issue. Here in the States, we have some websites called Free Cycle, where you just offer stuff online and people come and take it away. Or so it's there are opportunities for that at a community grassroots level, but to make it really effective, it needs to happen at a higher level. So those are big topics, and it's easy to get depressed, but I think that if you start to look at some of the wonderful case studies that Juliana presented and some of the lovely pictures that Juan Carlos presented, there is a role for a place for optimism and a place for us to be promoting some of these ideas, and choosing, frankly, the political leaders who are going to subscribe to them. So with that, I will give a short advertisement for our next session with Juliana, which is going to focus on a related topic, which is biodiversity in cities. There are some wonderful readings already up on your site. It's a fascinating topic. Check out the website I put for Fresh Kills, which is, a nice example of promoting biodiversity. The other example I'll give is something that's very close to my heart. If you noticed the picture behind Gina at the beginning, that there was the river and there was a walkway, that's my neighborhood. That's where I live. And it used to be the most concentrated industrial part of Philadelphia. It was one industrial plant after another, animal slaughterhouses, every bit of waste dumped into the river. And then about 30 or 40 years ago, there was actually legislation from the United States Congress that started the process of cleaning up rivers and waterways and the environment. The Environmental Protection Act was passed in the 1970s under a conservative Republican president, Richard Nixon. And the federal government was at 1980s, I think under Clinton, passed the Infrastructure, Transportation, Environmental Act, which promoted bike paths and walkways. And that's where a lot of the money for that path that you saw behind Gina came up. And it's still growing. It, as an example of a political process, it took the initiative, motivation, energy of a single individual in the 1980s, 1990s to push it. And it was continued efforts to do that. And it's now a fabulous resource. And interestingly, it is an economic engine. So even though it costs a lot of money at the front, Now, 20, 30, 40 years later, everybody wants to have some piece of the development along the river. The river, which, by the way, has a very funny name called the Schuylkill River, which in Dutch means hidden river, because when the people initially came up the Delaware River on the right-hand side, the east, they didn't notice that there was a river on the western side of the city till they were returning, and because it was hidden. So the hidden river, the Schuylkill River, is my neighborhood, and it's a great example of reuse, recycling, and the circular economy. So with that, I'll post something online about that, but I'm very proud of that. I volunteer there every Friday for the entire day in terms of tree pruning and garbage pickup and anti-graffiti. It's a nice project. Anybody who wants to join me Fridays, come on down. All right, team. Listen, thank you very much, Julian. Next session, biodiversity. Do the readings, and there are lots of great readings for this session. This has been a fabulous presentation, Juliana and Gina. She's not here anymore, but thank you, and we will see you online and next month. Take care, folks. Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye. Have a good day too.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you.